Hello and welcome to Chapter 10, Lesson 8. Today we're going to talk about a problem-solving strategy, and our strategy is finding extra or missing information. On the first day, Gabriella's family traveled 3/10 of a road trip. On the second day, they traveled 27/100 of the trip. They traveled 4 days. What part of the trip did they travel in the first 2 days? All right, so our first job is going to be to understand the problem. What facts do we know? We know that Gabriella's family traveled 3/10 of the road trip on the first day and 27/100 of the road trip on the second day. We also know that they traveled 4 days. So what do we need to find? We need to find the part of their trip that they traveled in the first 2 days. So our plan is that the fact that they traveled 4 days is extra information, right? We don't need to know that. In order to figure out how much they traveled, we only need to add 3/10 and 27/100. So the extra information was the 4 days, and that always messes kids up, let me tell you. Because they say, well, I should have to use that for something. And so then they try to create different ways that they should use that for, and just don't do it. Sometimes you just need to say, that does not mean anything. X it out. We don't care about it anymore. Does not help us solve the problem. Okay, so to add 3/10 and 27/100, 3/10 plus 27/100, I need to first get common denominators. So I'm going to multiply by 10, multiply by 10. Now I'm adding 30/100 plus 27/100. So I would get 57/100 for my answer. Now I'm going to ask myself, can I simplify? Nope. That's pretty simplified to me. I was thinking maybe 3, but 3 wouldn't, well, 3 does go into 57, but 3 doesn't go into 100. So that is simplified. Does your answer make sense? And explain. Yes, our answer makes sense. Because 30 plus 27 equals 57. And because we got common denominators, definitely it makes sense. Here we go. Charlotte walked 6/10 of a mile to school. After school, she walked 24/100 miles to her friend's house. How much time does it take Charlotte to walk to school? And how much time? Wait 1 second. How much time? So here's another example of where kids would probably just add these together and say, okay, took her, what would it be, 84/100 of a mile time. Well, wait a minute. Mile is distance. That's not time. So we can't even solve this one. What do we know? Let's write it down, I guess, anyways. Okay, so how much time? Sorry, I just wrote everything out. So it takes 6/10 of a mile to get to school, 24/100 of a mile to get to her friend's house. How much time to the school and to her friend's house? We can't solve this. There's not enough information. Okay, so we're kind of done here because I can't solve and I can't check my answer. So let's move on. Determine if there is extra or missing information to solve each problem, then solve if possible. There are 100 movies at the store. 30/100 are action movies, 50/100 are comedies, and 20/100 are adventure movies. What part of the movies are action or comedies? Okay, we can solve this one. So 30, what part? So we need fractions because it says what part. If it said how many, we could solve that too because we know there's 100 movies total. So we know there's 30 action movies and we were looking at comedies. So there's extra information here. That's this part. 20/100 of the movies are adventure movies. We don't need to know that because we're not trying to figure out adventure. So this, we'll just X it out and write extra. Okay, and then we can find 50/100 plus 30/100, hundredths equals 80/100. Does not tell us if we're supposed to simplify or not, so we're going to do it. I'm going to divide both by 20. Okay, so 24, 60, 80 is going to be a 4 and 5. 4/5 of the movies are action or comedy movies. Okay, if it doesn't tell you to simplify or tell you to write it as a denominator of 100 like it's been doing, always simplify. Always, always, always simplify. All right, keep trying. In a basketball game, the red team scored 3/10 of the baskets during the first half and 4/10 of the basket during the second half. Okay, the blue team had 10 players. Okay, random. How many baskets did the red team score during the first and second half of the game? So, yeah, this was my guess. Random. 10 players. We don't care about that. Extra. So I'm going to write extra. So I'm identifying the extra information. And then I just need to add 3/10 plus 4/10 equals 7/10. 7/10 of the baskets. In the first and second half. So boom, there we go. There is our answer. Alexia and her family went on vacation. They walked 1/10 of a mile to the beach, 2/10 of the mile to the souvenir shop. Then they walked back to the beach. How far did they walk in all? Okay, so they walked 1/10. So here's where I'm gonna say, let's say this. So let's say they start at their car. Car to beach was 1/10. And then they walked, oops, I better make this a little, to the souvenir shop. That's a funny word, souvenir. 2/10 of a mile to the souvenir shop. Then they walked back to the beach. So I would assume they're walking 2/10 of a mile back to the beach. How far did they walk in all? Okay, so that's what I'm going to assume. Let's do it. So 1/10 plus 2/10 to the souvenir shop. And then they're going to walk 2/10 of a mile back to the beach, which gets me 1 plus 1, 2 plus 2 equals 5/10 or half of a mile. How did I know it was half? Because 5's half of 10. So they walked half a mile in all. Okay. I suppose the only question, I don't know, we'll just go with it. I was going to say the only question would be how far did they walk in all? Maybe they didn't tell us if they walked other places, but we're not going to assume any of that. We're just going to say, okay, they walked there, back, how far they walk. We'll go with it. Okay, Kenley has country, classical, jazz, and pop songs on her digital music player. Of the songs, 17/100 are country. 17/100. 2/10 are jazz. Jazz. And 43/100 are pop songs. Now, because the other two are in fractions, I'm going to switch this to a fraction. So this is 43/100. So I'm going to write it 43/100 equals pop. She has the same number of classical and jazz songs. Okay, so jazz, so that means she has 2/10 classical. Okay. What part of the songs are either country or classical? Write as a decimal. No big deal. Okay. So first I need to get common denominator. If I'm going to add 17/100 because we want country and classical. So our extra information is going to be the jazz and the pop. So we don't need to know that 2/10 are jazz. We don't need to 43/100 are pop. So this is extra. plus 2/10, I need to multiply by 10, multiply by 10. So I'm going to get 37/100 are jazz or country, classical or country, sorry. Okay, so now I need to write this as a decimal. So if I was going to write 37/100 as a decimal, it would be 0 and 37/100 are country or classical. Okay, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any problems. We only got to do one that had not enough information, so look out for those, because you're going to try to convince yourself that you can solve it, but ask yourself, does that make sense? All right, we'll see you later. Bye.